want to call this meeting of the New Hanover County Board of Education meeting to order about redistricting. Ms. Adams, would you please call the roll?
Edward B. Higgins.
Here.
Jeanette S. Nichols.
Here.
Janice A. Kavanaugh.
Here.
Lisa Eastet.
Here.
Donald S. Hayes.
Here.
Bruce T. Schaaf.
Here.
David L. Portman.
Here.
The board has before them the agenda. Do I hear any additions or deletions from it?
None.
I move we adopt the agenda.
Have a motion. Do I hear a second? Have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. The first item is a review of redistricting. Okay, Mr. Anderson.
All right, thank you and good evening. Tonight's a very important part of the redistricting process. As you know, we've been gathering public comment and input through online process, but tonight you get to hear in person from a lot of our parents and students. But before we begin with the public comment, I want to give you a brief summary of the comments that we've received to date and an update on the redistricting proposal. Just for review, I know you get tired of seeing this, but I like to put it in the presentation so that you have it. These are the guiding principles for redistricting. These principles were adopted by the board on October 3rd of 2017. The high school redistricting timeline, this was actually adopted by the board January 9th of 2018. And I've circled in red where we are in the process. That's a little small to read, I apologize, but I'll go through it. On January 9th, we presented a draft proposal for the redistricting plan. On January 12th, we posted that plan online and began to receive online comments. We also posted maps at all of the traditional and high schools along with comment cards, and have been receiving those comments as well. The public comment period is scheduled for January into February. Tonight, January 23rd, is the public comment or public forum. And following tonight, we will gather all the comments and update the redistricting plan, and we will present to you an updated plan at your regular board meeting scheduled for February 6th. And then if all goes according to the schedule, we'll have a final plan presented to you for approval at the February 20th work session. So as I mentioned, we have been receiving comments online, at schools, emails. We've had a total of 186 comments received online. That's as of 1/17. That was when we cut it off for the presentation. But we've received additional comments since then, and we haven't shut that down. We'll continue to receive comments at least up into your February meeting. We've probably received over 200 comments altogether, online, through emails, and comment cards submitted at the schools. 25 to 30% of those comments pertain to 3 issues. Those issues are splitting Forest Hills and Glen Mead neighborhoods, the free and reduced percentage for New Hanover High School, and potential assignment of rival gangs at the same school. So so we'd like to address each one of those options or each one of those comments tonight. The first one, Forest Hills and Glen Mead neighborhoods. The draft proposal was to move 2 study areas, 202 and 203, from New Hanover to Hager. These two study areas are contained in the Forest Hills and Glenmead neighborhoods, and this was done to actually capture that Hager satellite. However, after hearing the concerns, we agree that that's not the best option. So we would recommend tonight that the board consider not moving those two, 202 and 203, that would split those neighborhoods, leaving those two in the New Hanover district, and that you maintain the existing Hager satellite. And that satellite is literally right adjacent to the Hager district and is very close to Hager High School. So we're asking that you consider that option. If you do want to do that, we could look at expanding the Hager district to increase that enrollment in other areas. And I'll show you where that would be. If you look at the map, I put a red. This is the map that shows the two study areas. 202 and 203 have the red diamond in it, and those are the two study areas that we're recommending you not move, but leave those in the New Hanover High School district. Total of 46 students. If you agree and want us to pursue that, we could look at these two areas to expand the Hager district. As I mentioned, there's only 46 students in those two areas. I know that the study area shown at the south there is in the Georgetown neighborhood, and it's a bad split between the study areas. So we want to address that anyway. So we could look at these two areas to expand the Hager district, making up the 46 students, and further reducing the Ashley district. Even after redistricting, the proposal had Ashley at 98 students over their building capacity. So this would further reduce that enrollment.
Before we move on that first recommendation, I would ask, are there any questions about that from the board?
Which recommendation is the first one? That we keep that in New Hanover?
Correct.
Okay.
Can you back up that?
And how many students are involved there?
46.
46, okay.
In both those study areas are 46 students.
I think that's a wise move.
If the board agrees, if the board,
cutting
Yeah.
the Forest Hills and
the board agrees, we'll make that change in the proposal that we give to you on the 6th.
Okay.
All right. The other item that we've heard a lot about was the free and reduced percentages for New Hanover.
Eddie, move the slide up.
I'm sorry, what?
You jumped the slide.
Oh, got ahead of myself. So at New Hanover High School has been a CEP school for the past 2 school years. That's the 2016-17 and 17-18 school years. While a CEP, yes, sir.
Explain what CEP is for the audience.
CEP is a community eligibility provision. It's with the Federal Free and Reduced Lunch Program, and if it qualifies, then all of the students at that school receive free meals without having to go through the application process.
what are the qualifications?
I got Eimer here, just in Eimer,
Miss,
Smith.
can you help him out?
She can
The
tell.
question is, could you explain
I can.
the qualification process for CEP?
CEP is qualified through, we look at different subgroups of type of students that go to the school. So those students we take the number of those students that are essentially on food stamps, if they're foster, migrants, if they're homeless, and then if the principal approves the application for a student. So we take those total number of students, then we divide that number by the ADM, which is the membership for the school, And then we come up with a percentage. That percentage is usually looked at by the federal government they want us to look at schools that are higher than 40%. Well, back in 16, 17, that number was essentially at a point where we wanted it to be, and we were able to, I don't know if you want, I won't go into a great discussion, but we were able to qualify New Hanover High School with 20 other schools, and to get to a number that the federal government wants us to get to, a percentage, which is 62.5% of identified students at a school.
Does anyone pay for their lunch at New Hanover?
No, sir.
Okay.
Everyone eats at no cost.
Thank you. That
And
answer
that's
your
at all
question?
21 of those schools.
21.
Oh, 21.
So by keeping Glenmead and Forest Hills together, we'll keep the free and reduced lunch rate about the same as what it is now?
Yes. We, because they're a CEP school, and we're not collecting the free and reduced applications, as Amr mentioned, we're limited in how we can determine, what students qualify. And so we look back at the free and reduced percentage prior to the CEP status, and for the 14-15 school year, New Hanover was 51.19%, and for the 15-16 school year, they were 49.39%. We estimate, if the plan is adopted, that the new percentage would be around 46.94%, which is more in line with where New Hanover was prior to CEP. So, and that's really the numbers that we should have used, and I apologize for that. I was trying to give you the most current information, not realizing that we're very limited in how we're identifying those students, so that number was understated. But Ms. Kavanaugh, in answering to your question, the bottom line is, in the proposal, we're only moving 9% of the total high school population. So redistricting will have a minimal effect on the free and reduced percentages of any school. And the projected number of 46.94, we feel is more in line with what New Hanover was prior to the CEP status, and probably a more accurate reflection of the current student population there now.
Thank you.
And the last item that we heard the most about was dealing with rival gangs. While we did take this into consideration in our redistricting plan and in the draft proposal that we presented to you, after hearing this concern, we contacted the Sheriff's Gang Task Force and asked them to meet with us. We did meet and we did review the proposal with them, and if we make any changes here tonight or in the future, we can meet with them again. But the Sheriff's Gang Task Force confirmed that the high school redistricting plan did not create any problems with rival gangs at any of our schools. Other comments, I've focused on these three. And if you look at the total, we've received over 200 comments, and I would say that 25–30% were about those three. But all comments are important, and I want to stress that. While I've only mentioned those three, we do read every comment, and we do go through every comment, and we will consider every comment. I know that we've made those comments available to you, and I know that many of you are going through and reading those comments as well. So, this whole public input process is very important, and I want to stress that we do go through and read and will consider all of those comments, and those comments will be considered in the update that we present back to you on February 6th. So where are we right now in our next steps? Again, looking at the timeline that you adopted, the purpose tonight is to gather public input, to hear public comments, for us, this is one more way that we can hear what the concerns are and consider all those concerns. Following the public input period, there's a time allotted for your comments. And if you have questions or want to give us any further direction prior to the February 6th meeting, there's an agenda item following the public input process for you to do that. And again, we will take all of these comments and all of this information back, and we will update a proposal, and we would present that to you at your regular meeting on February 6th. If you have additional comments, we'll respond to those and present the final plan to you for approval on February 20th.
Mr. Anderson, you keep saying we. Can you let everyone know who the Redistricting Committee actually is?
Sure. Yeah, I'm representing a committee, and that committee is Dr. Markley, Dr. Holliday, and myself, as well as Anita Baggy, Marion Brill, and Sheila Wilkes are there to support us. So,
Could you repeat those again?
I'll email you all those names, and so you'll have those, if that'll help.
And just so it
So you don't have to
clarifies,
write them down.
that those people came up with a map, which was presented to the board, which ultimately was put online for public information. You will take the comments and develop another map and present that back to the board.
Right.
Correct.
And I will say, even beyond that, the committee met, and we actually shared that map with the high school principals and looking to get input from them. We made some adjustments based on comments. We shared that plan with the Chairman Higgins. We shared that plan with senior staff. So there's a lot more people that are involved other than just the redistricting committee. And but yeah, all of those meetings and all of those opportunities for input into the plan happened prior to us sharing that with the board and prior to the plan being released to the public for comment.
Based on what we hear tonight, Eddie, how soon before we'll have the new maps online for review?
Well, we're actually by the end of the week, I would hope.
That's what I wanted to get out there.
If the board, unless there's some direction that I haven't heard, but if we move forward with the plan and the recommendations, I think we can have the revised maps posted online by the end of the week.
Well, you're talking about a small number of segments. I mean, if you put 202 and 203 back in there, that addresses the top three concerns.
Well, we
From
still
the
have to,
comments.
we'll still have to
But
look
I
at
knew there was some
that
others.
southern piece that he talked about on that Ashley-Hoggard border.
Yeah, we do want to get together and look at that, because if we, I don't want Hager, their enrollment to fall below their building capacity and leave Ashley at 98 students over. So we'll look at the opportunities to expand the Hager district, and we'll bring you an option to consider.
Mr. Anderson, I do have one question. When the redistricting committee met, and Dr. Markley, this is for you too, are there other areas? I mean, one of the big issues that we've heard is the socioeconomic issue. Looking at New Hanover's free lunch capacity as compared to some of the other high schools. Were there any other areas that you considered possibly moving into the New Hanover district?
Yeah, there was one prime area we looked at, and that was landfall.
Okay.
And if you'll notice, there were some areas on the other side of Military Cutoff that we did move, and so we used Military Cutoff as that major road as the boundary line. But what we did is we looked at landfall on one end and River Lights on the other end, anticipating that we're going to get the growth in River Lights over the next several years. So that was the decision there, because that would have put landfall sort of at the geographical end of what would have been the New Hanover district.
And then you have, I guess, River Lights, you're basically factoring in River Lights for future development, which I think is 8 to 10 years out. Is that when kind of
The final piece is 8 to 10 years out, but you're looking at a building, and during that the growth will happen over that time till it hits that 10th year mark. So looking at when we had our conversations with the folks at River Lights, and they were telling us about 20% of what they were selling, not counting the 55 and older piece, was school-age children. So we're anticipating some growth there that probably will be larger than landfall when it's all said and done. There'll be more homes in there. So we decided that that future piece was, we'd leave it in there, and then that's where we would get some of our growth. Now, at the end of the day, if you wanted to trade landfall for an immediate impact, you could do that for an immediate piece, and then look at river lights between Ashley and Hager.
I just, looking at the numbers and what's kind of been shown to us, it just, to me, it almost makes sense for us to consider other options instead of keeping New Hanover where it is and hoping that it changes a little bit. Maybe look at the maps and, you know, consider maybe the landfall dynamic or somewhere around there, because I know if you look at the maps that we have now, I think there's military cutoff. There are some areas of military cutoff that we're actually adding into New Hanover, correct? Maybe the Coville States, and then
At the top end, yeah, up near the top end, I believe. I'd have to look at the map exactly.
Okay.
So let me do this then. We know we want to make the changes that we've talked about tonight. So at the February meeting, let's bring those changes as as changes 1.
Okay.
And then if you want us to look at a B option, we can do that and look at some of those numbers. Because we definitely, if I'm hearing everything, doing what we talked about, call it option A tonight, is a definite.
Right.
But we can present you with an option B that looks at that.
That'd be great.
That moving landfall, and how many students are you talking about there?
If I believe landfall high school was just over 100.
Yeah, it was over 100 students, and, you know, just looking at the numbers, New Hanover was currently 112 students under their building capacity. In the proposed plan, it moves them up over 73 students. I know we're going to reduce that tonight if you accept the recommendation, but as Dr. Markley said, our concern was river lights. I think if anyone's driven down there lately, you see that they are building homes very fast, and we didn't want to present a plan. We want to present a long-term solution. We don't want you to adopt a plan that we would then have to come back and recommend a change to in 5 years. If you're okay with what Dr. Markley said, that would also give us the opportunity to talk to River Lights and get an update from them, so we can give you a little more information on what their plans are and their timeline as well.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Based on the adjustment of, I think you're calling it 202, 203, folks in Glen Mead and Forest Hills, moving them back into New Hanover. What does that do to the numbers? Do you have that in front of you? What that'll do to the numbers in each of the high schools and how much they'll be over or under? I know you're planning on growth, and I appreciate that. Do you have that number?
You look at the numbers that are there, so we're looking at a plus 46 now back into New Hanover, so that's a minus 46 coming out of Hager. We're also looking at another area that was the Ashley satellite going over to Hager as well, so that's a slight increase there to balance off some of those numbers. But the bigger change will come when Eddie looks at that line down there on the Ashley and Hager border.
Okay. Yeah, that's the concern with the New Hanover. In the current proposal, there are 73 students over their building capacity. So if we leave 202 and 203, that's an additional 46 students, where Hager is 29 students over capacity, and you know, that would reduce them, and they would be under their building capacity. So that's why we want to look at moving some additional students from Ashley into Hager. And while we would concern, you know, with the capacity, with the proposed capacity for New Hanover, we don't want to. You know, we would be putting them over 100 students over their building capacity.
But 202 and 203, I can talk. They are now, correct?
They're at New Hanover
so by
now.
returning them, we're not doing anything.
But you remember, we've also moved Laney students.
Right. That's the piece we haven't.
Right. So the numbers that I'm giving you are per the plan as it was submitted at the last meeting. So that 46 students that are in 202 and 203 are, according to these numbers, are in the Hager district. When we move them back to New Hanover, that's going to be 46 less students in the Hager, 46 more students in New Hanover.
And when you refer to building capacities, can you explain from your point of view what the challenges are moving forward? I mean, is it obvious and we're just over capacity, or does that have operational uniqueness that we need to know
It
about?
does. I mean, when any facility is over capacity, that's additional use, wear and tear on buildings. And when it's over capacity, it forces that school to get a little more creative in where and how they create classroom space or schedule classrooms. Capacity is a formula that's given to us from the state, and it's based on the number of classrooms, but it also looks at the core facility. So in other words, if you were looking at a school that had 500 capacity and we doubled that to 1,000 without considering core facilities, then restrooms, media center, kitchen, cafeteria, playgrounds, playfields, parking, those core facilities couldn't accommodate the additional students. So not only do we look at the classrooms, but we also look at the core facilities in calculating those building capacities.
So when we started this process, Laney was 395, is that right, over?
That's correct.
And Hanover and Hager were pretty close. Is that right?
Actually, well, Hanover and Hager were actually under their building capacity. Hager was 29 students under, and Hanover was 112 students under. So we were, part of the reason for high school redistricting was to better balance out the enrollment with the seats available within our high schools.
And you also,
Say
I think,
29 or 49 for
29 under building capacity at Hager.
and you also had to allow for a bulge in middle school, is that right?
Well,
And where they would end up?
one of the reasons that we wanted to redistrict high schools is because we know that there is a bubble of students. We just promoted, or this year we'll be promoting the largest fifth grade classroom or class that we've had. So for the next 3 years, that group is going to be in our middle schools, and then that fourth year they're going to be moving into our high schools. So we're anticipating growth in our high schools, over the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson,
Go ahead, please.
would you state again the number of students that we're going to move from Laney and what the capacity will be even with that move?
Well, the current capacity with mobile units at Laney is 1,923, and the membership there is 2,318. So they're currently 395 students over capacity. In the plan that we've presented, that would be changed so that their membership would be 2,204, which is 281 students over capacity.
Still over capacity.
Right. And the other schools are all, about 100 students. And I think in the end, with the plan we present on the 6th, all of our the other 3 high schools will be around that 100 student mark over capacity.
Okay, thank you.
But I remind you, after that fifth grade bubble, then the population, those other classes behind that are smaller.
Substantially, or?
Yes.
Which is great for class size reduction in our elementary schools. However, it's going to put a burden on our secondary schools for the next 5 to 7 years.
But that's also assuming that over the next 10 to 12 years, that population boom that they think is coming to New Hanover County doesn't arrive.
Well, you're going to see the demographer report in March,
Okay.
the full report, and his report looking at the fifth grade bubble and what's coming behind it are actually based on the numbers we're hearing from the demographer.
What is our expectation regarding river lights, and when do we, as far as them building out and where they're going to be going to, and what our expectation is of that?
The plan calls for about 3,000 units when it's done. Now, a percentage of those are to be 55 and older units, with the remainder of the rest being open to anyone. So they've got several phases of building, and we'll bring you a more complete timeline at your February meeting. But based on the conversation that Eddie and I had, you can drive down River Road and see the number of homes that are being built there now. So there is also a piece of land for an elementary school there. You approved that resolution in conjunction with the county commissioners. We still have to identify that particular piece of land.
Are all of the children from River Lights going to go to the same school?
They'll go to New Hanover.
That's what I'm asking.
Currently, that the River Lights development is going to Hanover, because if you look at the map of the redistricting map, that area has been slated for New Hanover even before they started building there.
I just wanted to make sure it was still that
And
expectation.
don't forget, there's, who knows how many houses are gonna be built at the old Echo Farms, or how many, there's about 200 going up across, Independence from Echo Farms, and those are single-family houses, not apartments, not condos. So, I mean, you know, again,
Where's this, Ed?
across, Independence, where Echo Farms Boulevard comes into Independence, that development.
The point, that area in there,
I'm sorry.
the point, the theaters and so forth in there.
No, this is
He's
down,
talking about down
down near-
across from,
yeah, down, halfway down to,
Oh, okay.
River Road.
between Carolina Beach Road and River Road.
Right. And it wraps around what used to be the golf course back there. So I think there's something like 190, 200 houses going in there. So, I mean, you know, people are coming and they're buying houses. Some are moving into apartments, and but a lot of them are moving into single family. I mean, like all those houses going up across from Myrtle Grove.
We don't have the land yet, do we?
We have a commitment for the land, what we have not identified as the site.
And when and how are we going to do that?
Well, wait a minute, that's the elementary school. We're
I
here,
know, I was
I mean, we're here to
just
discuss the
asking.
high school. I understand it. I don't
Well,
want to get us off.
we had to first indicate to the developer that we had need for the land, and that was the joint resolution. So we'll submit the joint resolution to the developer, then we'll have to sit down with that person and identify which particular tract of land that they're going to give us for the school. We've had some initial discussions about that, but it's not specific, and I really don't want to get into speculating. Ed, anything you want to?
No, that's exactly right.
Mr. Anderson, could you back up just for a minute and go back over the study areas that you were considering shifting from Ashley to Haggard?
I'm not identifying specific study areas in this. What I'm suggesting is these are the two areas that we would look at expanding the Hager district.
Yeah, the areas that are outlined in blue on that were in the original proposal to go to Hager. So the diamond areas are the two areas that he's looking at for expansion.
As possible expansion?
Yes.
And are those specific neighborhoods?
Well, the one on the bottom of the page is Georgetown at the top, and
And the Georgetown one is another case, so it looks like, based on the study areas, that we split a neighborhood, so we want to put that neighborhood back together.
Okay.
yeah, a lot of,
The other area would be Greenfield, which is actually right down here.
And how would that, could you also make sure that you determine how that would change the socioeconomic structure at Haggard?
we will.
Okay.
We will consider that as well.
Because Haggard is significantly lower than our other high schools.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, looking at Greenfield, Houston Moore, those are areas that we considered putting when we did this.
I have one last comment. Anticipating that we're not far from moving into the realm where we hear from the folks that are here tonight. Mr. Anderson and Dr. Markley, is there anything that you think needs to be said that would help clarify any outstanding issues before we hear from the public?
Those were the three primary ones that Mr. Anderson has identified. There were some others. I mean, anytime you move students, you're going to, there are going to be concerns beyond that. So we hit what we thought were the big three tonight. Eddie, you want to talk about just some of the other ones that may have popped up in the comments?
Well, I think there's obviously some other neighborhoods, some other comments or concerns about moving schools, and we will be looking at each one of those individually. There's some questions regarding open enrollment and senior privilege.
Open enrollment, I mean, if you're in a school now in a choice program or there through a process, that's not going to change. So if you're in that school because of the open enrollment or you're there because of a specific program, redistricting is not going to impact that particular change.
So in other words, if you had a junior that was in either Hager's IB program or New Hanover's Lyceum program,
Yeah.
and this shifted, they'd still be going to that school if they chose
Correct.
to.
And there's not going to be a year moratorium, because I believe that was also referenced in a
Well,
letter.
that's something as a board, once we finalize these lines, a discussion about what you want to do in terms of any restrictions. We're not going to, the specialty programs, they're there, they're open, you apply for those.
Right.
But we also have a process called in-out where we look at if students leave one school, we'll let that many students go to another. I would suggest we would hold in-out for a year. We're not limiting the specialty schools, just to see what the numbers shake out to that first year.
And to
What do you
also
mean
be
hold?
clear that senior privilege, anybody who is a rising senior could stay at the school they're currently attending.
What I meant by hold is, like I said, if 50 kids wanted to go to Hager, and then 50 wanted to go from one school to another to Hager, we basically have let them swap. I think we need to not do that for a year, just so we can get the numbers, see where the numbers are that year. But again, I'll make that recommendation, but that's something you as a board will either approve or not.
What about sibling privilege? Anytime
This board
has
has
ever
always honored sibling privilege,
Okay.
and we will continue to do that.
Okay.
But to be clear, sibling privilege if the older student is still at the school.
Yeah,
Right.
if somebody graduates this year,
Right,
There-
it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Correct, okay.
Just to be clear about that. Okay.
Yeah, these are all questions that have come up in the letter, so I think
Yep.
it's important that we define what we
All
plan
right,
to do.
anyone have any other questions? Thank you, Mr.
All
Anderson.
right, thank you.
all right, so just more time for the board. We will bring back the revised map of we'll call it option A, which includes the moves that we suggested tonight. We'll bring back an option B map that looks at basically swapping landfall and river lights. And there were some questions you've asked that we'll try to get to the information on.
I do have one other question along those lines. So you would bring that back on February 6th,
Correct.
and then on February 20, 2 weeks later, you're asking this board for a decision.
You could delay it until the March meeting if you had to.
Well, my question is along the lines of input from the community after you release a new map on February the 6th.
We're going to have the new maps, as Eddie said, up by the end of the week.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Would you restate Laney and River Lights?
Sure. Mr. Wortman had asked about landfall, because, and moving those in, because that gives you an immediate impact at New Hanover as opposed to a long-term impact. So we will look at that proposal and offer you a suggestion on that.
Okay.
But I want to keep that separate from the original discussions that Eddie was talking about in terms of comments. Now they're in Laney.
So if, worst case, if you did what you've been asked about there, and River Lights stepped up their development, and you had a bulge of people coming in to, say, New Hanover High School, you'd be in a position where you may have to redistrict again a lot sooner than you would like to. So that's what you're trying to avoid. But there's no guarantees of when they'll build up, but you're gonna have that conversation with them.
We'll have a conversation with the developers.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, then I will open this meeting for the public forum. What I would remind you is we allow 3 minutes. If you hear somebody say what you were already going to say, do not feel like you have to get up and repeat it, because we are listening, making notes about what is being said. This is high school redistricting. I have gotten a couple of emails from people who were speaking to me about the elementary schools, which are not being addressed this year. They are being addressed in 2 years. We're doing middle schools next year and elementary the third year, or the second year, I guess it would be. Having said that, I will start down the list as people are on my list here. You can see there's a timer. I would ask you to kind of keep an eye on that. I mean, I'm not going to cut you off. I will say this, I am not going to cut you off when you go to 3 minutes and 1 second, but I will tell you that you need to wrap it up because we do have many people who have come here tonight and many people who have signed up to speak, so in any event. All right, having said that, the first person on my list is Angela Davis.
Hello, how are you? I think we have a lot of parents here tonight. I'm just coming here as a parent to express my concerns. I live in Hanover Heights off Shipyard Boulevard, and I am geographically only 2.5 miles from Hager. My daughter currently this year goes to New Hanover, which is 3.6 miles away. We tried getting her into Hager last year, but we were told there was no room, so we went to Hanover. With the new redistricting that is brought before us today, she would be going to Ashley, which is 8.3 miles away from my home. That's just too far. I do take her to school. I do know they offer public transportation or school buses. My particular situation, that is not an option. There is a registered sex offender in my neighborhood. I cannot leave my daughter at the end of my driveway. I just can't. But with that being said, I was just looking at some of the numbers and I was a little confused. As I said, my daughter went to Hanover, and by reading the maps, and I apologize if I'm not understanding it correctly, it looks like to me there's roughly about 100 students that are going from Hanover who are to go to Ashley. But then Ashley's going to turn around and send 95 to Hanover. I just didn't understand that. And maybe, you know, I guess I'm not the only one. And then I just, in looking over the numbers, I was just interested why there's no Hager students leaving Hager. Everybody else has been asked to move. Nobody else has been asked, everybody else has been asked to make compromises, and I know there is growth. I went to Laney, don't get me wrong, and I grew up in Castle Hayden, but I live here in Wilmington now. And I just don't agree with, I don't know what the answer is, but redistricting children is not the answer. This is my daughter's first year in high school. She's very interested in the Lyceum. And I overheard what you said a while ago about the Lyceum, but at this point she's not in there. But that's her goal. And I feel like with this happening, this is going to be taken away from her. This is her first year in high school. Her junior high wasn't that good, but I have seen my daughter bloom, and that's why I'm here fighting tonight. It's for my daughter. This is what she is happy now. I'm not saying that we need a new school, but I don't know what the answer is. But affecting all these children is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, Dr. John Creasy.
Spell the last name.
C-R-E-A-S-Y.
Thank you for your time. I have a PhD in education, curriculum, and instruction. I'm familiar with a lot of the issues we have here, but I have a concentration in behavioral perspectives. I deal, for over the last 15 years, been dealing with, you keep mentioning numbers in 201 and 203. I deal with students. I deal with young people and how they're affected negatively. It's crippling when you move them and you transition them in a critical time. My daughter's 14 years old. She will be going to 2 different high schools. I don't think anyone in this room would have liked to have started high school twice. It's cruel, and I'm saying that as a professional. This plan is wrong, and we keep talking about as if they're just dots on a map, and they're not. They're children. They're important to this area. We continue to make short-term fixes. We keep talking about issues, and Dr. Marksley has made several comments tonight already about the unknowns. We're making a short-term fix that might have to redistrict again, which I find amazing at this level. It's a huge community. We can do better than this. We moved here very, very recently, and I'm just now becoming aware of a lot of the issues. We moved here 5 months ago. We researched schools as parents should do. We decided on Laney for our children. Our daughter entered the 9th grade. We called the superintendent's office, and their advice was, if you want to go to Laney, you need to move into Laney. We moved into Vantage Point. We confirmed that Vantage Point in Covell Farms was in Laney High School District. Now we're finding this out. 5 months after purchasing a home, we're now going to be a victim of being moved, potentially. That's a big deal, not only to the kids, but to their neighbors. This change affects children because their friends are in their neighborhoods, their neighbors, they're building relationships there, only to leave to go to a school a great distance away and not be friends with those people because they live in a neighborhood. So they leave that school, come back, and transition only back to their old neighborhood. So they're significantly disadvantaged. My own daughter transitioned well into Laney in the 9th grade, and as a teammate and a student has done well, and now she's having high anxiety about having to leave now. This will be a huge social disadvantage for the students, I think. Only 2 small areas on military cutoff are affected at this point: Lucia Point, and Covell Farms Estates. The district has always been the cutoff at the east side of military cutoff. Your guiding principles for redistricting state, your guiding principles state very clearly that the school board is committed to maintaining neighborhood schools. Covell Farm is not near New Hanover High School. It is not. It's only affecting 21 students, and I find it wrong. I can't deny the fact, and I know we've just mentioned it, but the fact is, it's very clear to me that landfall was skipped. Lucia Point affects 16 students. A giant neighborhood of landfall is completely wiped out. It's not even on the map as far as this is concerned. And then you get 21 students from Covell Farms. I don't find that a mystery myself. You again stated in your guiding principle that school attendance boundaries should follow terrain features and natural boundaries. They developed a wall. That is not a natural boundary. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Gina Fimble.
Spell that, please.
F-I-M-B-E-L.
Hey. I'm here tonight because I'm a concerned parent of children who are in the New Hanover County school system. I have 4 children, one of whom's in the school system now, 3 of whom will be entering the New Hanover County school system. And I strongly believe that the school district lines can and should be drawn to create a more equitable distribution of students. And this can be achieved without a significant increase in travel times. The current proposal for high schools would increase from children from 37% to 47% the number of students at New Hanover who would qualify for free or reduced lunch, students with fewer resources at home, and many living in challenging family environments. I'm still a little bit confused about your numbers. You released a statement yesterday saying that no, it's actually, New Hanover is closer to 51.19% of children who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And now you're saying, well, it's going to be 46% of children after the new redistricting drawn. But regardless, to me, it's a moot point because when you compare New Hanover with other high schools, Ashley at 33% who have children who qualify for free and reduced lunch, Laney at 33%, Hager at 20%, New Hanover still is carrying a very unequal load. This means that New Hanover High School would carry a heavier burden, and it would worsen the already troublesome socioeconomic and racial imbalance in our schools to the detriment of all of our students and our entire community. Under this proposal, the high schools would join our elementary and middle schools that, because of misguided redistricting decisions, have isolated high poverty children in highly racially segregated environments, and this is wrong. Such schools are a blemish on our community and compromise our ability to produce good citizens. In the 1954 decision in Brown versus Board of Education, the ruling stated, our Supreme Court stated, it is the very foundation of good citizenship, or education, is the very foundation of good citizenship. Does segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race, even though the physical facilities and other tangible factors may be equal, deprive the children of the minority group of equal educational opportunities? The Supreme Court said yes, we believe that it does. Our elementary and middle schools, and I realize we're talking about high school, but our high schools right now, you're still flipping the arc in the wrong direction if you do this redistricting plan. We are a community of de facto segregation. Segregation not mandated by law, but nevertheless persistently practiced through boundary decisions. And the current high school plan would only further segregate our community by racial and economic lines. I believe that de facto segregation by race and economic status is wrong. This is a personal conviction, but with that aside, I believe it behooves our school board to draw district lines based on the best evidence that will help all students in our community succeed. One area of concern is the huge discrepancy in student suspension rates. Rachel Freeman Elementary, for example, is an 85% black. No, sir, you will not shut me up. I stood here listening to you for an hour. 85%. Rachel, I want the public to know this, sir. Rachel Freeman Elementary is an 85% black and Hispanic school. They have a rate of 71 suspensions per 100 students. 71 suspensions. At Ogden Elementary, it's 0.72 per 100 students. That is an outrage, and those parents at Rachel Freeman should know that. Our entire community should know
Ma'am, how much longer are you going to be? I have the sheriff here. If you will.
We have failed the children attending these highly segregated schools.
I'll let her have one. I'll let her have one more sentence. I'll let her have one more sentence. One more sentence. All right, let me ask this. How many people want to give up their opportunity to be heard?
Okay, I'll just say one more sentence. I think that your decision should be evidence-based. Schools that are integrated by racial and economic status, those children do better. It better serves our entire community. And if people want to hear more what I have to say, you can read the article that I wrote in the Star News.
Very good. Thank you. Mario Jeter. Mario Jeter.
Good evening, Board. I thank you for this opportunity to speak. When we first reviewed, I stand as the Director of Operations for Communities and Schools of Cape Fear. We serve New Hanover and Pender counties. We serve 44 schools in between the two counties. Those students who are most at risk in dropping out of school, all the way from elementary to high school. When we looked at the first proposal for the redistricting plan, it did cause some concerns about the movement of some students back into New Hanover High School that would cause the free and reduced lunch population to expand, as well as their potential being for a safety issue with the students in the schools. After the revisions that have been put forth to the board, those concerns have been addressed. I don't think that there is a best solution to that problem, but it has minimized those factors that caused us some great concern as creating a system of what we would call scaffolded or just our students are in low-performing elementary schools, and then they move on to a low-performing middle school. And then ultimately, that plan was going to generate and create a low-performing high school. So we would have the potential of students right here in our communities who were introduced and educated in a failing system. And we know that is not the basic tenet of who we are as a community and what we want for our own children. So that was the thing that caused us the greatest concern, and we thank the board and we thank Dr. Markley and the Redistricting Committee for actually submitting and asking the community to give their feedback and reading that feedback and taking that. And that was the number 3 consideration from us as an agency looking at that, because we work hand in hand with those schools trying to deliver those supports that students desperately need. And we were creating a system of under-resourced students then moving on and just being presented to the next grade, not promoted. They're still not making proficiency, they're still not making any growth academically, and we know that there's some more steps that we can take in the right direction, but I think tonight is the beginning of that, and we need to have more input from more people in the community and others who have the resources to sacrifice. The time is calling on them to sacrifice for the good of the community. Thank you for your time today.
Next speaker, Louise Hicks. Oh, okay. Next speaker, Charles Baldwin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Education, my name is Charles Baldwin. I reside at 1126 Princeton Drive. I'm a parent, along with my wife Devin, of 2 New Hanover High School students. Our daughter Davis is a senior in the Lyceum program. Our son Selden is a freshman soccer player. We are in District 203, so obviously we've followed this process with great interest. And I thank the board for all its deliberations and the staff and administration for all their help in working through many of the issues and concerns. So we will follow along with that. But all this discussion got me thinking about some things. And the first thought that came to my mind is commitment. We've lived on Princeton Drive for 20 years. We bought our house in 1998. And we have seen 20 years of parents and students and friends and their kids go through New Hanover High School. And we've seen how active and involved they are. They volunteer, they contribute financially, they participate in the PTA, their kids are in sports, Lyceum program, and it's just a great place to be. And I think if you look in the audience tonight, you'll see a lot of black and orange. And a lot of that's being worn by parents of children who have long graduated, by grandparents. And that's because of all the hard work that you and we, administrators, teachers, and coaches have done to make New Hanover a great place for our kids to be. But my thought isn't about New Hanover. It occurred to me that other schools have neighborhoods just like that are committed to their school and are just as loyal as we are. So I would urge in this commitment concept that these committed neighborhoods continue to be affiliated with the schools they've long been associated with. The second thought that occurred to me is excellence. There's a great new mural downtown on a brick wall at the corner of 2nd and Princess Street. It's the North Carolina state flag with a memorial bridge on it, and it has a big banner over it that says, "I believe in Wilmington." We believe in Wilmington, and we believe that all 4 of our high schools can be excellent. With excellent as the only acceptable goal in mind, some concepts and guideposts that might be considered are not splitting up neighborhoods. Secondly, have boundary lines and the dividing lines along main roads so that the divisions are logical and relatively apparent. Thirdly, that diversity and inclusion be developed at all 4 high schools. And fourthly, that open enrollment continue. I know from my involvement in the Lyceum program that children from Marsh Oaks and other out-of-district areas have been greatly helpful, and those are the people who are involved and their children want to be in these programs and at these schools. So with that in mind, hopefully we can roll up our sleeves and move towards some of these goals. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Linda Simpson.
Thank you for your time. I just
If
want
you
to
pull
make
it down just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I'm nervous. I'm not used to speaking in a forum like this, but I just want to say that I raised 3 daughters in the same household, in the same neighborhood, in Kings Grant subdivision. My oldest daughter graduated in 2015. My middle daughter graduated last year, 2017. My youngest daughter is now attending 9th grade there. And like I said, we've lived in the neighborhood for 27 years, and my children have lived in the same home and attended the schools that they were districted to. And it's a little confusing with the map. I know nothing's set in stone yet, but it seems like on the opposite side of the highway, on I-40, is going to Laney, but our side of the highway is now wanting to be redistricted to New Hanover, and I don't quite understand that. She's already set up there. She started 9th grade this year. She's got friends there, with the assumption that that was where she was going to complete her high school education. So it's a concern for me. I'm a single parent, and if I need to get to her in an emergency, that's very important to me. And I know there's other people in the neighborhood that feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Hart. Teresa Hart. Carla Nab. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right.
Hi. My name is Carla Kanab, and I'm a senior and a freshman at New Hanover High School, and they're there through open choice. And even with what's been said tonight, I really am not clear on what will happen to, say, my 9th grader who is there on open choice, but is not yet in one of your special programs like a lyceum. Open choice is an important part of our high school system, and it's really been growing in importance, and we've developed special programs like STEM, IB, Marine Studies in all the different schools. And Lyceum has long time been a draw to get kids to New Hanover. Open choice students are college-bound students. They want to work hard in their college prep. They're kids who maybe are outside the normal social circle of their neighborhood. And this is the reason why my kids actually are an open choice student for New Hanover. Many years ago, we were redistricted to an elementary school that was not, we were redistricted to an elementary school that was not where the neighboring communities would go. It was less than an ideal social environment for my kids. But now we're at New Hanover, and we're very happy. And my daughter and her friends from St. Mark chose New Hanover so they could be together and could eventually do Lyceum together. Getting a group of kids from St. Mark through open choice is definitely a healthy thing for New Hanover. But now they're scared, and they're saying they may leave. They've heard rumors that they are increasing the low-income students, and they are worried that this will mean what this will mean for their classes. If their classes are limited, then their college options will be limited too, and they know this. I love New Hanover, but I'm scared for New Hanover. Without making any changes, but just by announcing them as possibilities, you've scared people away from a great school. The changes proposed to New Hanover District were not positive ones, and to do this to a school that already serves so many underprivileged is shameful. The school deserves our community's support. I will also add that I'm on the Parent Advisory Board for Lyceum. For 2 years, our faculty and staff and students have been touring all the middle schools and educating 8th graders about the programs, and so have IB, Marine Sciences, and STEM. What a waste of time and money it's been to develop these programs and tour around if you're going to limit them to the districted students or make students transfer. Nobody wants to transfer high schools in sophomore or junior year. That will make these programs obsolete. I ask you, please send the message that open choice is alive and well. Take your time with redistricting. Next year, I know you plan to redistrict the middle schools. Why not wait a year to redistrict the high schools too and think about the big picture? And maybe even elementary schools too. And I just feel like this whole decision feels rushed, and that each school now has a unique draw, and with the Lyceum, STEM, IB, and Marine Studies, and that we really need to give them time to develop and build, and this may just crush them. That's it.
Nicole Merle. Nicole Merle. Or Morrell. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. Nicole Morrell. All right. John Skelton. For what it's worth, let me say, in case some of you have some feeling, I had 3 children go through the New Hanover County school system. They went to Gregory, Williston, New Hanover, have all been very successful. So if there's any concerns about any of our schools, and especially New Hanover, let me assure you, they will get a fine education. Thank you. Okay. You may think it's funny, but it's true. I'm sorry. We have some quiet, please, so this gentleman can speak.
I am a sophomore at Ashley High School, and I'm one of the impacted students. I do understand the need for the redistricting, and I understand that the board can't make everyone happy. All I ask is that the impacted students who are being redistricted are given the choice to stay at the school that they began their high school careers at. There are 685 stories to be told for all these kids being moved by this redistricting. Some want to move, some don't care, and some are very upset. I'm only able to speak for one. High school is one of the most important times in a kid's life. We are learning to be independent, we face peer pressure and bullies, we learn to express ourselves, and we chart our path for the future. I arrived as a freshman and started a journey that is both exciting and scary. New friends, new teachers, new coaches, and a time when I started to make my own decisions. What classes to take, what clubs to join, and what kids to hang around. It's difficult being the new kid. What I can say is that by my second year, I've found my place. I'm playing 3 sports, belong to several clubs, and I've even been given the honor of being inducted into the Beta Club. In addition, I was selected to be the Beta Club sophomore representative, which is a leadership stripe for my college resume. You get this because students know you, teachers know you, and administration knows you, and they respect you. These teachers and administrators will eventually be the ones to write me my letters of recommendations for college. I've worked hard to make these connections with these administrators and teachers to have a strong resume for college. Now I face going to a new school my junior year, starting all over. At Ashley, I could expand and grow as an upperclassman, and at a new school, I'll be finding classes, navigating a new building. I can go down this path with many examples, but that's enough about me. What about the shy kid that has found a group to sit with at lunch? The kid that was bullied that now has friends that surround her? Or the kid that struggles in school and has found the teacher that is helping him find his way? Each has a story, and it is important to recognize the impact of this action on all of us. Why do I ask this of you today? It's for the 685 kids' futures you hold in your hands, and I just ask that you treat us as people and not as just numbers in a plan to impact them.
Thank you. Hamilton Hicks.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I applaud the staff's recommendation for modifying the Glenmead and Forest Hills lines. The work isn't done yet. You have to vote on it. And the public needs to be aware that the pressure still is remaining. And we trust your diligence and we applaud it. If the decision had been made otherwise, we would be facing a major divorce. The support for the school, the lyceum, the athletic programs, classroom support, the dollars flow freely. It wouldn't necessarily hurt the students who would have been reassigned. In some respects, it would hurt the students who remain there, because the support system to a large degree will be pulled away. I'm sure you recognize that, and I just wanted to go on the record as heartily endorsing the staff's recommendation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Amy Lombardi.
How many speakers do we have signed up?
Signed up? I've got 6, I got 7 left besides Ms. Lombardi.
I'll be fast. You said not to come up.
That's all right. No, take
No,
your time.
I don't want to be up here long. You said not to come up and repeat what someone had already said, but the gentleman that spoke about just moving here, moving into a school district and Vantage Point, I'm also in Coville Estates. My husband and I spent 7 months searching for a home in the right school district for our son, and we want him to grow up with the same children that go to the same elementary school and the same middle school and the same high school. And we feel like you're just taking a small part of a neighborhood and sending it, you know, to a farther away school. And we just don't think it's right. Like they said, skipping over landfall and just singling out smaller neighborhoods, it just doesn't seem to make sense to us. So I am repeating what someone else from the same neighborhood said. That's all.
Thank you. William Condon.
Can you spell the last name?
C-O-N-D-O-N.
Good evening. The reason I'm here is I have a sophomore in Ashley High School who is now in the nursing program, moving to Hager. Nothing against the Hager district, but she has found her place there, and to uproot her to a program that's not what we were thinking it was going to be. Also, boundaries are being set, main roads. It used to be up to Navajo Trail. It's now moved back a few blocks, so it's cutting through neighborhoods, again, not boundaries. Lastly, if we're here today, I think we're putting a Band-Aid on a big wound. New schools have to be built. Do we have any land acquisition? This is going to happen again. We're going to redistrict, then we're going to move kids in a few years, redistrict them again. How many high schools are kids going to go to? Do you have any land that you're going to acquisition, and where would it be? And if that comes to my kid going to a new school, that's fine, because the whole area is going. Just to zigzag and move boundaries, there's boundaries now going up Carolina Beach Road past Shipyard that have to drive 9 miles to Ashley High School, when Hager is 2.7 miles away. So therefore, it's not a neighborhood school anymore. It's what you guys make it. So if you can rebuttal later about any properties, any new schools, and where they would be, so I can plan on moving in the future on where I can only move once. Okay?
Thank you. Deidre Condon.
Thank you for your time. We moved here 4 years ago from New York and spent a great deal of time deciding where we wanted our children to attend high school after visiting all of the new Hanover County high schools. We knew Ashley would be the best fit for us, so we bought a house on Wedgefield Drive, which was in the Ashley district. We now have a 10th grader at Ashley who is devastated at the fact that her junior and senior years she will be at a new school. Her sister graduated from Ashley in 2017, so this has become our second home. Our 10th grader has not only made friends at Ashley, but she's double rostered for 2 sports teams and has bonded with her coaches and teammates. She's doing extremely well in the prerequisite classes leading up to the CNA program at Ashley, as she plans to go into the nursing field. She's worked closely with Mrs. Hillenbeck since 9th grade and is expecting to continue with her as well as with Mrs. Gambino in the next 2 years. She's following in her older sister's footsteps and is familiar with both of these teachers as they are her and our family. She is also a member of the Key Club, the Hospice Club, and EC Buddies. These are things that are important to her, and to make her leave all of these things for a new high school as a junior is just unfathomable to me. I am upset that this is how the redistricting is being handled. I'm also concerned because sadly my family is dealing with the loss of a family friend's daughter who committed suicide 2 weeks ago back in New York. This young lady killed herself because she was having difficulties with making meaningful friendships while being away at college. This is absolutely the worst time to move these 685 children, or 9%. This may not seem like a big population to you, but it is when your child is one of the 9%. I'm very concerned of how this move will emotionally affect not just my own child, but the other 684 students. As an added note, I am the Ashley PTSA secretary, and I have another year left on my term with them. I would be very upset if I had to leave this post because I no longer have a student at Ashley. I don't know if this is possible, but can't the redistricting allow for the current students to be grandfathered in if they want to stay, and have incoming 9th graders be redistricted to wherever you want them to go? I'd be willing to have my son as a 9th grader at Hager and my 10th grader now as a senior at Ashley. I'd be willing to juggle that as opposed to pulling out a 10th grader now. Psychologically, I just don't think that's the right move. And I also feel that, a lack of planning shouldn't be my family's emergency. Thank you.
Sarah Bailey. Sarah Bailey. Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening.
I'm coming to speak to you because when my sister was 6 years old, even though this is high school redistricting, it affected her when they redistrict the county. When they drew the lines, they drew it straight down the middle of 17th Street. We lived on the corner of 17th and Grace. She walked to Snipes at time Chestnut Street School. She had to go to Blair. She was the youngest of 9. We took turns standing on the corner of 16th and Grace, waiting for her bus in the dark, in the mornings, so she could catch the bus to school, so my mother could go to Snipes to teach. When you look at elementary, to middle school, to high school, these changes really affect these children's lives. Not only their lives, but their families' lives. And I don't want to see New Hanover County go backwards in time. Because one thing I do know is this: other counties are watching us. New Hanover County sets a record. They set a tone for how other districts will do their lines. They'll watch us because we have always been a leader, and they follow. Other states are watching because how you decide these lines will be drawn. They will look at you and say, if they can do it, we can do it. It hasn't hurt anyone, but it does. So New Hanover County, eyes are on us. So be very careful how you draw the lines, because it will affect so many children and so many families. Be a leader that is the right leader. Thank you.
Walter Rapp.
Spell the last name.
R-A-P-P. Is Mr. Rapp here? Okay. Lenore Young.
Good evening. My name is Lenore Young, and I'm an involved parent at New Hanover High School. I am concerned about the proposed redistricting plan under review tonight. I am concerned because the proposed choices for student movement results in unfair student body composition at our schools. My understanding is that the proposed plan will leave New Hanover High School with about 47% economically disadvantaged students, while Ashley, Hager, and Laney are expected to be about 35%, 22%, and 35% respectively. This plan seems to disadvantage New Hanover by moving around 95 low-income students into the school from the Ashley satellite, while exporting about 133 students that are not low income out of Hanover to Ashley and Hager. Those 95 students, they can go from Ashley to Hager, not Hanover. I urge you, as leaders, to seek a solution that provides for both better balance to the number of students at the schools without unfairly increasing the number of low-income students at New Hanover High School. Your first guiding principle for redistricting states that a diverse student body, inclusive of race, gender, disability, and socioeconomic status, is important and valued. New Hanover High School is already challenged with managing a student body with a high, low-income population. The population often brings additional challenges to the school environment, placing additional stress on the administration, teachers, and fellow students. Dr. Morgan and his staff and all of his teachers are working tirelessly to instill purpose, educational excellence, and hope for a better tomorrow to a student body that's facing so many challenges outside of the classroom, and these are transparent. They have to deal with them at school. I feel we fail these administrators, teachers, and students by not giving them the best opportunity and resources to set them up for success. The way we do this is by balancing the classrooms in size with students from all economic backgrounds. This enables an environment that fosters diverse ideas, problem solving, and learning, which provides hope for teachers and students alike, regardless as to where you lay your head at night. We just buried a great man, a great principal, Mr. James McAdams. We dishonor his legacy if we unfairly balance our classrooms and make it more difficult to instill the values of hope, purpose, and academic excellence in our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip McGinnis.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm not sure anybody wants to follow that, but I will. That was outstanding. Very well said. As a father of 2 daughters, I wake up naturally nervous every day. Not one day goes by that I don't wake up on eggshells. I've got a rising 9th grader who, under the former proposal, would have been at Laney, is now currently districted for New Hanover. I have friends with children in each high school, and they're all very proud of the schools they go to. They're extremely proud of where their kids are. My issue and my overall issue with this is I've been in Wilmington for 25 years. So I came here as a young man, and now I'm a father. And one of the things I say all the time is, I may not know what I'm doing, but I have a plan. And that resonates in every facet of my life. Over the last 16 years, my wife and I have moved 3 times in 1 square mile of Covell Estates, Covell Farm, and Middle Sound Loop. Those 3 moves were all predicated on Ogden, Noble, Laney. Every adult decision that I've made for my children regarding their education comes with the idea that that's where I would be. When my wife sent me the map last week and told me that they had taken 2 neighborhoods from Military Cutoff on the east side, I was flabbergasted. They jumped over 1,100 homes in landfall. 1,100 houses. I don't know, I commend you all for the difficult decision that you have to make. None of these are easy, and someone's going to be affected. My question and my ask of you is look at it objectively. Think of your own children and think of what that redistricting is when you look at that map. The east side of Military Cutoff down to Eastwood Road has always been Laney. Everything to the east of where you've carved out is Laney. Everything north to Porter's Neck and Scotts Hill is Laney. You've carved out 2 neighborhoods, and I think if I heard the numbers right, you're gaining 21 kids. Leave them where they are. So I thank you for your time. I commend your decision making, and I know it's very difficult. Thank you very much.
Linda Simpson. Okay, well, I just had it down here, so I wanted to make sure. I was trying to check the email address to see if it was the same one. All right, that concludes the individuals who have signed up. I've taken notes. I assume the rest of the board has taken notes. And we will consider all of that. The next item on the agenda says New Hanover County Board of Education provides input on redistricting plan.
That's an opportunity for you as the board to take what you've gotten maybe in emails that weren't part of the, their phone calls, and any suggestions you've got from what we've heard tonight, from what you've seen online, so that we can take that back as part of the input.
Okay.
So I would suggest maybe start at one end and work your way down.
All right, I mean, who wants to start? Mr. Sherrill or Ms. Easton?
Bruce wants to start.
You want my reaction? Is that what you're asking?
So far. Not necessarily how you're going to solve it, but what's your reaction?
Well, we started down this path with overcrowding at Laney. And we talked about how do we resolve that. And we put together, or staff put together for us as board members, a plan. And it was a draft. It was put out there for reaction. And it's gotten strong reaction, a lot more than what's in this room. We've talked, I'm sure all 7 of us have talked to a lot of different folks. I think there clearly changes that we need to look at. I'm not sure that it's prudent to delineate the things that immediately come to mind. But I will say to you folks, several times tonight I heard someone say if you'll look at it objectively. And I want you to know that the staff has looked at it objectively. I don't like everything in it. There's things in there that some of you strongly dislike, and I understand better after hearing from you tonight, as well as the folks that have that I've chatted with, I've gotten emails with, etc. So I guess from my standpoint, this is my first time at a redistricting. So it's a learning curve for me, but I do understand. I have 2 children that went through the school system, and I have 4 grandchildren that will be going through the school system. I live in Middle Sound. I understand what a lot of you folks particularly are saying, particularly the gentleman that said, you know, we moved here, we relied upon elementary, middle, high school, and the traditions that go with it. The challenge that I see is when you go to fix an overcrowding issue, it's that old adage of whose ox is being gored, and someone's not going to be pleased. Some are going to be very, very angry. I do think we've made some errors. Don't blame that on the staff at all. I think there are some things that we can look at and improve. I think we'd had some discussions individually. One of the challenges, folks, is that with 7 of us sitting here, we can't get together without violating an open meetings law with 4 of us talking about it. So we're kind of hearing it tonight from you all. We will have the opportunity to talk and see what we can do to correct a lot of these things. But I will say that I believe all 7 of your board members here want to come up with a solution that reduces overcrowding. It is concerned about diversity without ripping neighborhoods apart. We are a neighborhood school community. Some like that, some don't. What I hear, the majority do like it. My children went through the neighborhood school system of College Park, and then some New Hanover ultimately, and so on. I guess those are my comments, is that I think we got a lot more work to do. I've taken notes tonight. I know the staff have. I don't have any comforting words for you to leave with, except that you did get my attention, and I intend to have more conversation with Dr. Markley and others. When we come back before you on February the 6th, you'll have a plan before that. But I encourage you, when you see a revised plan, to come back in here and to say what you feel, what you believe. But I can promise you it's not a lack of objectivity, not from everything I've seen. So those are my comments.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hayes.
Well, I would just like to say I appreciate the comments that were made tonight. I think it's a learning experience for us. To me, this was a starting point, and that only. We received recommendations from staff. I personally do not like neighborhoods being split. I personally like children attending the school nearest their home. But then there are many other factors that we have to build in. We do not have taxing authority. It's not lack of planning on our part. That we tried years ago to build a high school up in the northern end of the county like we did at Veterans Park, a high school, middle school, and elementary school. What we were able to come up with up there was Holly Shelter and Castle Hayne. That's as far as we could get. We have to go to the county commissioners for money. and we have a good working relationship. But to build schools, and if it were not for the fact that we have the 2 early colleges and this year's C-Tech, which is a new venture in Mosley, it would be even worse in these high schools. We have students in our 2 early colleges and in those areas. So here again, I appreciate your comments, but it's a starting point. We're going to look at it, and I think we can meet a lot of your, address a lot of your concerns based upon your comments here tonight. But it is difficult. The problem is we don't control the growth. Growth is occurring. We all know that. How do we best meet that? And I think it's great. Nobody wants to leave their school. But when you have a school that Laney, prior to the construction over, I think was closer, was it not, Mr. Anderson, to 600 students over, but with the new construction at Laney, that was able to lower that overcrowding to where, because it increased the capacity. But clearly something has to be done. There's some other ideas we can look at concerning that area of the county that affect Laney and might also affect Trask. And we have the Rock, the building that we purchased, the church that is now being used for College Park. So there's a lot of things we can look at. But it's not lack of planning, it's just lack of just moving things around. And I appreciate the fact that you don't want your children moved. And I know that the schools have the specialty programs, the things that Ashley, the Lyceum at New Hanover, the baccalaureate and so forth. And we'll try to honor those children that are already in those programs so they would not be disrupted, because we know it's not good. But the bottom line is, when you have certain schools that are overcrowded and other schools that have capacity, we have to do something. And no matter what we do, it's going to upset some people. But hopefully we can make it as painless as possible, adhering to the principles that we're trying to address in our guiding principles.
We board members have children and grandchildren in our schools, so we're well aware of the problems whenever you have redistricting. I was a military brat. I moved 9 times in 13 years, moved schools 9 times in 13 years. It's not fun. It can really have some negative effects if not done properly on children. I took copious notes. I tried to make sure I got everybody's name and their comments. I am concerned about the level of anger and hostility that I heard. I can assure you we don't take this lightly. We want to do what we can to make it as easy for children as we can. And we have, as you saw at the beginning of the meeting, we've already asked the administration to make changes from what was originally proposed. So we're open to suggestions and we're open to change. And I hope that you will understand that we are sincere in our attempts to be fair and equitable and proactive. We need the money for new schools. We don't have the money for new schools. We get our funding from the county commissioners. I have never, in all the years I've been on the board, we've never received what we have asked for in appropriations from the county commissioners. They have their problems, we have our problems. Neighborhood school, when I got on the board years ago, children were moved from school to school. Each school was, they attempted to have a 70% white ratio and a 30% black ratio. And as a result of that, children were being bused from the beaches to the mainland, from the Intracoastal Waterway all the way downtown, from downtown all the way out in the suburbs. And we had parents begging us, please don't ship our children as far as you are. And I made it my goal to try and get as close to neighborhood schools as we could. And so I went about doing my best to try and get neighborhood schools. We now operate on neighborhood schools. We have to make changes though, and so consequently sometimes you're not going to the school that's the closest to your home. It depends upon transportation, landmarks, all sorts of things like that. But I want you to know we're trying hard, we really are. And you have our email addresses. We're all open for emails from you for any kind of input. And I look forward to getting more input from parents. Thank you.
Ms. Eastep? Any
Oh,
comments?
You're skipping over everybody else.
I said I was going to start down here at the end.
Okay. I won't take up too much time. You know, Mr. Shell said a lot of what I was going to say. I realize that emotions run high when you talk about redistricting. For me personally, it's the hardest thing I think that we do. This is the first time I've gone through a big redistricting. Someone did say that we need to remain objective, but it's tough to remain objective when you're talking about someone's children. You can't. You have to. I know that we talk about subject areas or site areas, but you are talking about students. I have 5 children of my own that all grew up here and graduated here. So, and we went through a redistricting of our own, so I understand it from the other side, and it's tough. Please understand that everybody here is working very hard, and the maps that we started with were meant just as a starting point, and we are very glad to get the feedback because it does help us. It does help us consider things that we didn't consider before, and we want to end up with the best maps that we can. And we realize we're moving small amounts of students, but they're your students, and so it means a lot to you, and it does mean a lot to us to get this feedback so that we can make the best difficult decision that we can. And this is just the start of it because we got to do middle school and elementary school next. So hopefully with what we're learning now, we can go on and do the best job that we can. So thank you for coming, and we will like continued feedback. So so what maybe we aren't considering, you all can fill us in. Thanks.
Mr. Waltman?
I would just reiterate a lot what Ms. Eastep and Mr. Shell said as well. It's obviously a very emotional process when you're dealing with your children. I know we keep talking about this 9% number and the 600+ number, but for a lot of the parents here, it's 100% because it's their children that are actually going to be moving schools. I have 2 young children. The oldest starts kindergarten next year, and we were in a district that was actually going to be moved too. So one of the I guess one of the benefits of putting the maps up early and listening is I've been able to hear a lot from the public about their opinions as to what we need to do to fix our high schools, whether it be district lines we're talking about, whether it be socioeconomic lines that we're talking about. I think those are important things that us as a board need to consider. And I think without hearing from you and hearing the passion that you have for not only your children, but all the children, and balancing those, some of those discrepancies that we have, I think that's the reason why we're willing to change the maps, because we hear from y'all. So I would certainly encourage y'all to keep posting comments if you have friends that want to post the comments, because I know I can only speak for myself, but I know I've read all of those comments, and it's it does make a difference, because ultimately we as a board are here to make sure that all the children get a good education, and that at least is what we're trying to do up here. So I appreciate y'all coming. That's it.
Ms. Nichols?
I think most everything has been said, but I want to assure the parents that have a school in mind that has a focus, like the Lyceum or the STEM program, that we talked in the policy committee meeting today about working to ensure that these students will be able to remain there if they're definitely if they are ready for that program. We're also going to look at a better way of getting the pathway to those programs for those students. But when I read the emails, it was so hard, because I realized we started with a computer that generated a map. And now we've got people that are telling us how it's going to impact them, their families, and their children. So I pledge to reread, to think about what you've said, and do my very best to see if we can't balance out the numbers without disrupting so many. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the board, I do want to thank each of you for coming, and whether you agreed with us or disagreed with us, we do appreciate your comments, and we will take them into consideration. For 31 years, I taught at the community college, and I would have students write papers for me. And what I always told them was, I said, until you've got something down hard that you can look at, you can't edit it, you can't change it. Well, this is what we've got that's hard. From this, we can edit, we can look at, we can think about, should these people who have students who are, let's say, at Laney, be transferred to New Hanover to take some of the pressure off of Laney? I don't know how many times I have heard from Laney parents about the overcrowding at Laney. We hadn't heard much from Ashley about the overcrowding, but I'm sure it's coming. But, the fact is that we're not out to make your children be numbers. We're trying to help the children be able to learn in an environment that is not overcrowded and not hard to deal in, hard to live in. So I appreciate what you have come to say, and I will tell you that I have made notes, and I will look at those notes, and I will strongly consider what you have suggested that we should or should not do. So know that your input is valuable, is considered. It is not lip service to you to make you feel good. We are here to try and do what we believe is in the best interest of the New Hanover County school system. And you are the parents of the students who make up that New Hanover County school system. So we have to also consider what's in your best interest. So I want to thank you again for coming. I appreciate the comments, and we will take them in serious consideration, and we will have something for you to look at on February 6th, if not before. So thank you for coming. All right. Do I hear a motion?
I move we adjourn.
I've got a motion. You second it?
I second.
All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.